For centuries, humanity gazed at the stars and wondered if we were alone. In 2157, we got our answer, and it wasn't what we expected. The Galactic Council, a federation of 17 spacefaring civilizations, had been watching us for decades. They weren't impressed. Earth is hereby sanctioned for aggressive expansion and resource exploitation, announced High Counselor Vexstar, his holographic image towering over the United Nations Assembly. All interstellar travel is suspended. All colonial outposts must be abandoned. Earth will remain under quarantine until humanity proves itself worthy of joining galactic society. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds before the room erupted in outrage. I was there, recording everything as the UN's chief communications officer. Nobody noticed me in the chaos. Everyone was too busy shouting, arguing, or staring in disbelief at the alien diplomat whose civilization was millions of years beyond our own. 2 days later, the Council's enforcement vessels appeared in orbit. Sleek, obsidian ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They didn't attack. They didn't need to. With technology we couldn't comprehend, they simply shut down our interstellar drives, stranding thousands of colonists across our newly established settlements in nearby star systems. "They think we're children," said Admiral Chen, pounding her fist on the war room table. "They think we'll just roll over and accept their judgment." The Emergency Security Council meeting had been going for 16 hours straight. I hadn't slept, recording every word, every plan, every desperate idea. What the Galactic Council failed to understand about humans was simple: we don't respond well to being cornered. Throughout our bloody history, humanity had always fought hardest when backed against the wall. The sanctions weren't just an inconvenience, they were a death sentence for our off-world colonies, many of which couldn't survive without regular supply shipments from Earth. "We have no choice," President Rivera said, her voice steady despite the weight of the decision. "We hereby declare a state of war against the Galactic Council and all affiliated entities until Earth's sovereignty is recognized and sanctions are lifted." The room fell silent. War against 17 advanced civilizations? It seemed like suicide. But then Director Katri from Advanced Weapons Research stepped forward, placing a small black cube on the table. "Project Prometheus is ready," she said quietly. "We reversed engineered it from the crash at Ganymede. They don't know we have it." The cube pulsed with an eerie blue light, and for the first time since the sanctions were announced, I saw something new in the eyes of Earth's leaders. Hope. "Send the message," ordered the president. "And may God have mercy on us all, because the Council certainly won't." As I transmitted the declaration of war to every human settlement in our solar system and beyond, I couldn't help but wonder, what was inside that black cube that gave our leaders such confidence? And would it be enough to save us from the wrath of civilizations that had mastered the stars when our ancestors were still learning to make fire? The Galactic Council had made one critical error in their assessment of humanity. They thought sanctioning us would bring submission. Instead, it brought war. The declaration of war spread across human settlements like wildfire. Within hours, our colonial outposts, the very ones the Council had ordered abandoned, began transmitting their responses. Not surrender, not evacuation plans, but pledges of allegiance to Earth. Humanity would stand united. I was reassigned to the USS Defiant, Earth's newest and most advanced warship. Though advanced was relative compared to Council technology, we might as well have been sailing wooden ships against aircraft carriers. As we prepared for departure, I cornered Dr. Katri in the ship's laboratory. "What exactly is Project Prometheus?" I asked, recording equipment deliberately switched off. This was for me, not the archives. She studied me for a long moment. "Insurance," she finally said. 15 years ago, a Council scout ship crashed on Ganymede. Official reports claimed all technology was destroyed in the impact. That was a lie. The laboratory door hissed shut behind us as she activated a security field. The air shimmered briefly as we were cut off from outside monitoring. "The ship's quantum navigation core survived," she continued. "We've spent over a decade reverse engineering it. The cube you saw contains the key to Council FTL technology, but with one critical modification. On her workstation, a holographic display flared to life, showing what looked like a three-dimensional spiderweb of energy pathways. Council ships create stable wormholes, allowing them to travel vast distances instantly. Our version does something different. It destabilizes existing wormholes. We can't beat them in conventional warfare, but we can cut off their supply lines, strand their fleets. The implications hit me like a physical blow. We're going to trap them in our solar system. Precisely. If we can't leave, neither can they. The ship's alarm suddenly blared. All personnel to battle stations, announced the captain over the intercom. Council enforcement vessels approaching Mars colony. From the viewport, we watched as 12 Obsidian Council ships materialized near Mars, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun. Our fleet, a mere 7 ships, moved to intercept. "They'll be slaughtered," I whispered. Dr. Caitry's hand tightened around the small control pad she carried. "Not today." She pressed a sequence of commands. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as the Council ships prepared to fire, their formation suddenly faltered. The space around them seemed to ripple, distort. 3 ships simply vanished, not destroyed, but gone, as if they'd never existed. "What did you do?" I gasped. "Severed their connection to their wormhole network," she said, eyes fixed on the remaining Council ships. "Those 3 ships were redirected, elsewhere. The others are now stranded, just like us." The remaining Council vessels seemed to hesitate. Taking advantage of their disarray, our fleet opened fire. I watched in awe as Earth vessels scored direct hits against Council shields that should have been impenetrable to our weapons. Something had changed. The playing field was leveling. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Caitry said quietly. "Project Prometheus has other applications we haven't revealed yet. Applications that could change everything." As our ships engaged the enemy, the captain's voice came over the ship's comm again. "All hands, brace for impact. Council reinforcements incoming." But when we looked back at the view screen, what appeared wasn't Council reinforcements. It was something else entirely. A massive vessel, unlike any Council design, materialized between the 2 fleets. "That's not Council," Dr. Caitry breathed, her face suddenly pale. "That's something else." The unknown ship broadcast on all frequencies in perfect English. "Children of Earth, you have upset the balance. There are consequences for that which even the Council fears." The bridge fell silent as we stared at the colossal ship that dwarfed both our fleet and the Council vessels. Its design defied conventional understanding, shifting geometric patterns across its hull that seemed to fold in on themselves, creating impossible angles that hurt to look at directly. "I am Arbitrator Null," the voice continued, "neither male nor female, but somehow both. The precursors observe that equilibrium has been disturbed." Captain Rodriguez found her voice first. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force. We are defending ourselves against unjust sanctions imposed by the Galactic Council." A pause followed, stretching uncomfortably long. "Then, the Council's authority is provisional. Your resistance was unexpected." On the command screen, we watched Council vessels power down weapon systems. Something was happening on diplomatic channels, data streams flowing between the new arrival and the Council ships. Dr. Caitry grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the auxiliary command center. "We need to record everything," she hissed. "The precursors are supposed to be extinct, a myth the Council uses to legitimize their authority." As we raced through corridors, the ship's AI updated us. Diplomatic channels had opened between Earth, the Council, and this new entity. The mysterious arbitrator had called for an immediate summit. "Admiral Chen is requesting your presence," Dr. Caitry told me. "Your communication skills. You're being drafted as Earth's diplomatic recorder." Hours later, I found myself aboard the precursor vessel in what they called the convergence chamber. The room defied physics, larger inside than should be possible, with walls that seemed both solid and permeable. Representatives from Earth stood facing the Council delegation across a central platform where Arbitrator Null hovered, their form constantly shifting between humanoid and something utterly alien. "The Compact of Worlds has been violated," Null announced. The Council exceeded its mandate by quarantining a developing species without proper observation period. High Counselor Vexstar bristled, his iridescent scales flaring. Earth's technological development has been exponential and dangerously unpredictable. Their weapons research was defensive, Admiral Chen interrupted. We had detected your monitoring stations decades ago. We knew someone was watching. This revelation sent murmurs through the Council delegation. I recorded everything, noticing the surprise on several alien faces. More significantly, Null continued, humanity's modification of quantum navigation represents an evolutionary branch unforeseen by the Compact. Dr. Katri stepped forward, her expression cautious but determined. We didn't modify your technology. We took a different approach entirely. Council wormholes manipulate space-time to create stable corridors. Our system creates controlled instabilities that can disrupt those corridors. For the first time, I saw fear in Vexter's compound eyes. Impossible. Such technology would require understanding of 11-dimensional mathematics beyond your species' capacity. You underestimated us, President Rivera said simply, joining the conversation via holographic projection from Earth. As conquerors throughout history often do. Arbitrator Null's form pulsed with light. The Council's judgment was premature, but humanity's response demonstrates precisely the aggressive tendency that concerned them. Neither party has operated within compact parameters. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the chamber. On display screens, we watched as new vessels appeared around Earth, not Council ships, but something else entirely. Their hulls were organic, writhing with what looked like tentacles of living metal. Scavengers, Vextar hissed. They monitor for precursor activity. Your arrival has drawn them like carrion to a corpse. Null's form dimmed slightly. The Compact has attracted unwanted attention. The scavengers seek precursor technology, and now they have detected your Project Prometheus as well. Admiral Chen stepped forward. These scavengers, are they a threat? They are opportunists who feed on technological advancement without earning it, Null replied. They will strip your world bare to obtain what you have created. The screens showed the alien ships deploying smaller craft toward Earth's atmosphere. Without warning, our planetary defense systems opened fire, but the scavenger ships absorbed the energy weapons, growing larger with each hit. They consume energy, Vextar explained, unexpected concern in his voice. Conventional weapons only strengthen them. In that moment, something changed. The Council representatives moved closer to our delegation, exchanging urgent whispers. Ancient enemies now faced a common threat. You have 23 of your hours to decide, Arbitrator Null announced. Accept provisional membership in the Compact under Council supervision, surrender Project Prometheus to precursor containment, and receive our protection, or maintain your independence and face the scavengers alone. As the ultimatum hung in the air, Dr. Katri slipped something into my hand, a small data chip. No matter what happens, she whispered, this needs to reach Director Wu on Lunabase. It's the complete Prometheus schematics, with my latest modifications. Modifications I never reported. Before I could respond, the scavenger ships opened fire on Earth's orbital defenses. The choice that would determine humanity's fate now came with a ticking clock and a third option known only to me. The journey to Lunabase was a nightmare of evasive maneuvers and close calls. While Earth's leadership debated the ultimatum on the precursor ship, I commandeered a shuttle with Admiral Chen's emergency authorization codes. The data chip felt impossibly heavy in my pocket, the weight of responsibility, not mass. Scavenger vessels swarmed through our solar system, targeting military installations first. Their organic ships split and reformed when damaged, adapting to our weapons with frightening speed. Earth's orbital platforms fell one by one, their crews evacuating in desperate rushes toward the surface. Approaching Lunabase, I announced to no one as I piloted the small craft toward the hidden entrance on the dark side of the moon. Transmitting clearance codes now. A narrow fissure in the lunar surface yawned open, barely wide enough for my shuttle. I dove in seconds before a scavenger scout ship rounded the lunar horizon. The fissure sealed behind me with a mechanical groan. Director Wu was waiting in the hangar, her face grim in the harsh, artificial light. The Council and precursors are tracking you, she said without preamble. We have minutes at most. I handed her the chip. Dr. Katri said you'd know what to do with this. Her fingers closed around it, eyes widening slightly. She completed it then. The dimensional anchor. As we raced through the base's corridors, we explained between breaths. Prometheus was never just about disrupting wormholes. That was Phase 1 defense. Phase 2 is something else entirely. We reached a laboratory deep within the lunar rock, where a team of scientists surrounded a larger version of the black cube I'd seen earlier. This one pulsed with blues and purples, occasionally flaring with white light. Katri's theory was revolutionary. We continued, inserting the chip into a console. The Council, the precursors, they all use 11-dimensional mathematics to manipulate space-time. But she found a 12th dimension they've never accessed. The screens around us filled with equations I couldn't begin to comprehend. The scientists gasped collectively, fingers flying over interfaces as they integrated the new data. What does this do? I asked, recording everything despite the urgency. History needed to remember this moment, whatever happened next. Wu's expression was part terror, part exhilaration. It anchors Earth and our colonies to a dimensional frequency the scavengers and Council can't detect or reach. We would effectively phase shift our entire civilization. You're talking about hiding an entire planet, I whispered. More than hiding. Evolving. Her eyes never left the displays. Humanity would take an evolutionary step beyond even the precursors. We'd exist partially in a dimension they've never accessed. Alarms blared throughout the base. On the monitors, we watched as 3 scavenger ships landed on the lunar surface directly above us, their hulls rippling as they extended drilling appendages. We need more time, one scientist shouted over the noise. The calculations for a planetary shift require at least 12 hours. Director Wu's face hardened. We have minutes. Initiate Protocol Omega. The phrase triggered an immediate reaction from the team. Half the scientists backed away from their consoles, faces pale. The others moved with renewed purpose, isolating systems and rerouting power. What's Protocol Omega? I demanded. A partial shift, Wu replied, her voice steady despite everything. We phase the moon and everyone on it into the 12th dimension as a proof of concept. If it works, Earth follows. If not. She didn't finish the thought. The room shook as the scavengers' drills bit into the lunar crust above us. Dust rained from the ceiling. Director, a scientist called out. We're detecting a precursor signature approaching. Arbitrator Null is coming. Wu nodded grimly. Of course they are. They can't allow us to ascend. It would upend the power structure they've maintained for millennia. On the main screen, a message flashed from Earth's unified command. Council Alliance accepted under protest. Stand down all experimental weapons. Repeat, stand down. We ignored it, turning to me instead. The world needs to know what really happened here, whatever the outcome. Your recording is the only insurance we have against history being rewritten. The cube at the center of the room now spun in midair, its glow intensifying until it was painful to look at directly. The base's shaking increased as something massive landed on the lunar surface. Dimensional anchor at 80%, called out a technician. Breach in sectors 7 through 9. They're inside the base. Security feeds showed Council enforcement troops and what could only be precursor sentinels flowing through the corridors, neutralizing our defenses with frightening efficiency. Behind them came the scavengers, their semi-fluid forms squeezing through spaces too small for their bulk. 90%, the technician continued, voice cracking with stress. 95. The laboratory doors exploded inward. Arbitrator Null floated through the smoke, their form now solidified into something vaguely humanoid but too tall, too angular. This ends now, they said, voice resonating at a frequency that made my teeth vibrate. You're right, Director Wu replied, her hand hovering over the final activation sequence. It does end. Just not the way you planned. I raised my recorder, determined to capture whatever came next. Above us, the scavenger ships covered the lunar surface like a writhing metallic infection. On Earth, The Council's remaining fleet formed a protective barrier against more scavenger arrivals. And in that single moment, balanced on the knife edge between evolution and extinction, humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of one woman and her hand poised above a glowing red button. "Now we find out," Wu whispered, looking directly into my recorder, "whether humanity deserves the stars." Her finger descended toward the button as Arbitrator Null lunged forward, time seeming to stretch and distort around us all. Time crystallized in that moment, Wu's finger pressing down, Arbitrator Null's form stretching impossibly toward her, the scavenger's drills penetrating the ceiling above us. The black cube pulsed once, bright as a newborn star, then everything went silent. The world shifted. There's no other way to describe it. Reality itself seemed to fold around us, colors bleeding into one another as my perception expanded to accommodate something my human brain was never designed to process. When my vision cleared, we still stood in the lunar laboratory, but everything had changed. The scavenger's drills hung motionless above us, frozen between moments. Arbitrator Null had collapsed to the floor, their form flickering between states of matter like a faulty hologram. "It worked," Wei whispered, staring at her hands which now seemed to trail ghostly afterimages as she moved them. "We've partially shifted into the 12th dimension." Outside the base, through newly transparent walls that somehow maintained their structural integrity, I could see the scavenger ships immobilized on the lunar surface. They vibrated slightly, as if trying and failing to adjust to our new dimensional frequency. "The shift is incomplete," one scientist reported, voice echoing strangely in the altered space. "We exist in both dimensions simultaneously, a quantum superposition of states." Arbitrator Null struggled to their feet, their voice distorted. "What you've done cannot be sustained. The dimensional stress will tear your world apart." We approached the fallen precursor without fear. "Then help us complete the transition, or help us return safely. Either way, you now understand that humanity won't be contained." The next 3 days unfolded in a series of negotiations unlike any in human history. With Earth partially phased into a dimension that even the precursors couldn't fully perceive, the balance of power had fundamentally changed. The Council's sanctions were formally withdrawn. The scavengers, unable to adapt to our dimensional shift, retreated from the solar system. I recorded it all humanity's first true galactic treaty. Not as supplicants, but as equals. The Compact of Worlds is amended, Arbitrator Null declared in the final session, their form now stabilized through technology Dr. Katri and Director W had developed together. Earth is recognized as a sovereign civilization with full rights of expansion and self-determination. President Rivera signed the treaty with quiet dignity. "We never wanted war. We only wanted our place among the stars." "A place you have earned," Vextar acknowledged, his earlier arrogance replaced with grudging respect. "Though your methods were unconventional." 1 month later, I stood on the observation deck of our first officially sanctioned colony ship, watching Earth recede in the distance. The partial dimensional shift had been reversed once the treaties were signed, but the technology remained exclusively ours, a silent guarantee of our continued independence. Dr. Katri joined me at the viewport, her new role as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council sitting comfortably on her shoulders. "We could have disappeared entirely," she said quietly. "Shifted fully into the 12th dimension where nothing could touch us." "Why didn't we?" I asked. She smiled, watching the stars that now welcomed us instead of threatening exclusion. "Because isolation isn't evolution. True advancement comes through connection, not retreat." As our ship accelerated toward humanity's future among the stars, I completed my final recording of the crisis that had nearly destroyed us and instead had elevated us. Not through warfare as we initially believed, but through the very human qualities the Council had feared, our adaptability, our persistence, and our refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. The Galactic Council had sanctioned Earth, and humanity had declared war. But in the end, we had found something far more powerful than victory. We had found our place in the universe.